Good afternoon, and welcome to today's webinar, the new SEO mindset, hosted by Unleash Technologies. Today we'll be talking about future-proofing your search engine optimization and provide some actionable tips to prepare for the always changing, always evolving world of SEO. Before we get started, some house-cleaning items. We will not be taking additional questions today. Please go ahead and enter questions in the chat box, and we will follow up in email and provide answers to your queries. With that, let's go ahead and get started and get to meet our guest today. So our panelist today is Tim Prestiani, Digital Marketing Manager and our SEO guru here at Unleash Technologies. Tim has more than 8 years of experience in SEO. His approach to SEO is built around fully integrated digital marketing strategies that consider both the short-term and long-term growth of your organization. I know I've been in marketing for longer than I want to admit, and I've never met anyone who knows more about SEO than Tim. So with that, Tim, would you like to get started? And let's go ahead and jump in.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you for the great introduction, and thank you everybody today for joining us for the new for the webinar here, the new SEO mindset. One of the things that I want to kind of lead off with and kind of start out as saying is, how SEO has changed. I look around online and you always see advice from all these, SEO gurus and blog posts and all these other places, and a lot of that stuff is old and dated information, and a lot of the so-called SEO best practices that you hear of, simply don't apply anymore. In the past few years, there's been a major shift in how Google ranks websites in search results. And these changes have resulted in many of the old SEO tactics becoming, obsolete, if not damaging, to your search engine optimization for your website. So today I want to kind of go through and name some of those things that I feel are going to be damaging or obsolete for your website, and then give you some practical tips and tricks on things that you can do to actually start making a difference in the way that SEO is working today with Google search. We'll also touch base a little bit about the new Google page experience update that's coming out in 2021, and just kind of go over some of the new things that are there, as well as some of the old metrics that are going to continue to be tracked and added into that new update as well. So with that, we're going to move on to the next slide. All right. So, for example, one of the old tactics that really doesn't work anymore is focusing on long tail keywords. Years ago, this technique used to work great. I used to do it myself, and it worked very well for actually. And here's how it worked. If you published a blog post about colognes that smell good for under $100, and then I published another blog post around good smelling colognes under $100. As you would imagine, the content for both of those blog posts are pretty much going to be exactly the same. The only thing that I'm going to do is change the headline. I'm going to change maybe a couple sub headlines inside of it and a little bit of wording, but for the most part, it's going to be the exact same content. And back then, Google would take and look at those two separate posts as two separate posts, and you will be able to rank for those keywords. So for good smelling colognes under $100, and for colognes that smell good under $100, you'll be able to rank for both of those search terms with each individual post that you created. That's until Google Panda update came out. I'm gonna switch to the next slide. Once Google Panda came out, it really focused on websites that publish poor content, or primarily on sites that really publish like hundreds of run-of-the-mill blog posts, really built around those long tail keyword sets. They really, Google started to understand what people were doing and how they were gaming the system, and wanted to start penalizing those websites who were really just churning out just tons of posts and just trying to rank solely on these long tail keyword sets. So once Panda came out, we started to see the beginning of the end of these kind of practices, and especially for long tail keyword sets. And that's going to take us into the Hummingbird update. And that's really the death blow for the long tail keyword, in my opinion. This update really focused on semantic search, allowing search engines to better understand the intent of the search query, the person looking for, what are they actually looking for? And today Google takes and looks at posts that, would be, good smelling colognes under $100 and colognes that smell good under $100 as being the exact same material. And not looked as two separate things, but being exactly the same. So this pretty much renders that old school technique of just going around and developing, mindless content around long tail keywords, pretty much obsolete. I'm going to go into a few other things here that I feel are older SEO techniques that really have no value or could even hurt you nowadays. This is a great one, the keyword density calculation. Back when I first started SEO, there was this big rave about, your keyword should be in your content 3% of the time. So 3% of your content should only be your keyword, and that was the big driving push. And that, I don't even think it was true back then, to be completely honest, but it's definitely not true anymore. If you're writing good content, you're going to use your keyword multiple times simply because you're writing about it, and you want to be able to write in a way that allows the readers to really follow along and not feel as if you're just shoving different keywords in there to satisfy search engine results. There's a few tactics that we can use now, especially because of that Google Hummingbird update that allows us to really add some more of those LSI keywords in there. So keywords that are closely related to what you're writing about, and it really helps get the point across to Google. And we can touch on that a little bit later on. The second thing would be using exact match domains. So this was a huge craze, like back in like the early 2000s to mid 2000s, where you would have a website, for instance, like thebestpizzainmaryland.com. And you would try to rank for pizza in Maryland, and for a little while that kind of worked when you had that exact match domain of what your keyword was to your domain name, but that's pretty much fallen off to the wayside. It doesn't work anymore. So you can go ahead and forget about that. Now, one of the real old school techniques is the meta keywords tag. Now, the meta keywords tag still exists in most websites and even for a lot of the SEO tools that are out there, but they're no longer used. Google stopped using meta keywords years and years ago. Bing stopped using meta keywords as well. And what that would be, there was a place where you can actually place the keywords you were looking to rank for in this keyword tag. And years ago, search engines would actually use that as a ranking signal and be able to pull back based off of those meta keywords. As you could imagine, that was extremely abused, and a lot of the search engines stopped using it altogether. Nowadays, for people like me, it's a gold mine of information for those who still use them. It's not going to hurt you, but what it's going to allow me to do is go to your website and quickly and easily look up all the keywords that you're trying to rank for. So if I'm going against you and you're my competitor, I can go to your website, pull up your meta keywords tags, and steal every single keyword that you're already ranking for. This is great for me because it allows me to save a ton of time in research, because I can just go through all the competitors and steal their keywords if they still keep them on there. It allows me to build a nice keyword list to start off with. So I would advise in the future, though it won't hurt you, it's definitely going to give your competition a leg up. So go ahead and remove any keywords that you have sitting inside your meta keywords tag. The last part that I would say for old techniques that don't really work well anymore would be using directories, using link directories. DMOZ is one of the probably most well-known directory. And years ago, having a link back from DMOZ was great. It was actually really hard to get. But there are a lot of spammy link directories that are still out there today, and those kind of links that are coming back to your website are more than likely probably going to hurt you, if not help you at all. So I'd advise to stay away from link directories. Anywhere where you can go and place your link for free, or they want you to spend $25 to do so, it's probably not a good place for you to be spending time and placing your links there, because it's going to be looked at as spammy. If anybody can go there and anybody can do it, it's not really going to hold any authority anymore in search results. You're really looking for those links that are coming from authoritative sites and are coming naturally back to your content. Now, that's not to say that we can't go out there and actively work with others to try to get them to link back to our information into our websites. But just going to basic directories and dropping a link on there just for a backlink, and it simply doesn't work anymore. And more than likely, it's going to go ahead and actually get you penalized if you do it too much.
Great. Tim, quick question.
Sure.
You did mention the term LSI. What would what's that acronym?
That goes back to the Hummingbird update. So that would be like latent systematic search, LSI keywords.
All right, and let's keep moving.
All right, so a lot of people ask me, what is the best way that I can future-proof my website for SEO in the future? And, we really don't know what the next algorithm update's going to be through Google, how they're going to change search, but you have a really good idea. And what I would say that the best advice would be to create fresh, in-depth content, while providing the best user experience possible for the searcher, and make sure that your blog posts, your articles, your pages are satisfying the search intent of the user. So you want to go ahead and make sure you're publishing content that, when someone's going online and they're searching for something, you're answering those questions that they're looking for. You're providing value to them. You're providing information in content where they can go through, read, learn, and move on in the process. If you're just throwing up pages that have 200 or 300 words on there, and you're really not answering the full question or providing any kind of value at all, those pages are more than likely not going to rank well now, and they're certainly not going to rank well in the future. With that being said, I have 4 tips to help you future-proof your SEO, and I'll jump into them now. Tip number 1: avoid using black hat SEO tactics. Black hat SEO is defined as a list of tactics or strategies that have been openly documented by Google Webmaster Guidelines or Bing's Webmaster Guidelines, that are disapproved practices. And there's a lot of things that you probably already know of. Some of the most well-known black hat tactics are link scheming. So you would think like link farms and link wheels and link exchanges, in which you would throw your link out to another website, they would link back to you, and thousands of other people would all do the same thing. It kind of goes with that old school technique that used to work. It still may work now for a little bit, but once these certain things become uncovered, you're going to face a pretty hefty penalty from Google for it, and it's going to be a lot harder to dig out of that penalty than it would be just to completely avoid using any kind of link schemes. People are always going to say, buy these high domain authority links, for me. And it's just like hundreds of links from overseas. The stuff's not going to help. It's only going to hurt. If it does help, it's only going to be for a very short amount of time, and it's definitely not worth it. I've seen clients come in the door with just so much garbage links coming back to their website, just tons of garbage links. And, it's really difficult at that time to be able to fix that issue. You're going back to those websites trying to get them to remove the links, which is very difficult to begin with. Most of these links are coming from overseas, and they're not checking their website, nor do they really care. There can be people who try to hold you hostage for these links, saying, well, if you pay me $15, I'll remove the link. So I've seen that happen before, which is nuts. And when all else fails, what you can do is actually, comprise a list of all the links that you have pointing towards you that you think are spammy or bad, and submit them to Google on a disavow link technique, and try to get them to just completely ignore those links in hopes that you can get out of some penalties for it. So, it can cause a lot more harm than it ever will good. So I would definitely say stay away from link farming. Another technique that used to be very popular, which still kind of is the cloaking technique. And this is where the content that's provided to the search engine crawler is different from the information presented to the browser. So you could see things where people are stuffing keywords behind images. So people looking at the site cannot see it, but that web crawler is going to see it as it kind of crawls the HTML of the page. Or people also will take and continue to write more and more content on the page and sneak it into different areas and make it the same color as the background. So people reading the site cannot see it, but these search engine crawlers can still go through. And that's different forms of cloaking. That's definitely a black hat tactic that I would stay away from. Now, one real easy, thing that I guess we can all agree on is, copying content that already appears on the web. That would be just going to whatever website you want to that's about your topic and copying and pasting that information over and publishing on your website like it's yours. That's definitely a big no-no. A, just because it's unethical, but B, because you definitely will get penalized for it. Google's going to find it and know that it lives somewhere else, and you're going to get hit. So definitely avoid, grabbing people's content, scraping other people's content, and using it on your site. And the last one would be, doorway pages, and that would be having multiple pages created specifically to rank in search engine results that have no internal links going to it from that site. So it would be standing up a bunch of pages. You see this a lot in like local search kind of SEO stuff, where we'll have a company come into an area and they'll build, the best plumber in Baltimore County, for instance, and then they'll list every single town in Baltimore County, and they'll have a page about every single town in Baltimore County, but there's no link from the website to it. You cannot get to that location page from the website itself. They're looked at as doorway pages. And if you have a bunch of doorway pages where you're just trying to rank for words that you really don't have any business ranking for because you're not linking to them out of your main menu, then you can also get penalized for having doorway pages. Now, here is tip number 2, is really understanding the basics of SEO. On-page SEO, for those who don't know, is the process of optimizing your web pages in order to rank higher organically in search results. On-page SEO refers to both the content on the page and the HTML source code, so kind of that technical SEO aspect as well. This is different from off-page SEO, which refers to those links that we were talking about earlier that would be bringing external signals back to your website. In SEO, there's so many things that are out of your control. You don't control Google's search result algorithms at all. You don't control if external sites are going to link back to you and to your content. But one of the things that you have complete control over is your on-page SEO, and better understanding how to use on-page SEO to your advantage and learning the basics of it should be a foundation of every SEO strategy moving forward. Luckily, we have a great piece at our website, on-page SEO checklist. It's made for 2020, and it kind of walk you through the best on-page practices that are out right now. We're going to talk about things like title tag, the proper use of headings and subheadings, how to link outbound to authoritative pieces of content, which in return allows you to look like a hub of information, because people can come to you and then go to other respected places of information and grab information there. Using internal links between your internal pages on your website. So if we have some information about Drupal, for instance, and then we have a couple of different how to properly place images on the Drupal website, how to add content to a Drupal website. These would be good internal links to kind of move people along that journey so they can grab more information, learn more, and it also helps with your SEO. Including those LSI keywords we talked about earlier. You kind of think of it like, and this is how I try to explain it. If you're going to write a blog post about The Simpsons, you're going to talk about Homer, you're going to talk about Bart, you're going to talk about Mr. Burns, and you're going to talk about Springfield. And these are all things that people are going to automatically look for and think that are going to be a part of this article. If you simply write a blog post and you just say The Simpsons 15 times, then there's a ton of information you're leaving out there. And these other keywords that are tightly and closely associated with The Simpsons are going to help people gain a better understanding. And it's also going to help search engines understand that, yes, this is The Simpsons that I'm talking about, not O.J. Simpson or this Simpson or anybody else, but The Simpsons, the cartoon. So it really helps a lot. And on-page SEO, definitely, if you don't have a good understanding of it, check out the blog post. It's on our website, and it'll definitely help you get a great understanding of what needs to be there for 2020.
Yeah, and Tim, first of all, thank you for the Simpsons reference. That always makes me happy. And then secondly, at the end of this recording, for those of you in attendance, we'll send not just a link to this recording, but we will also share with you a link to the on-page SEO checklist that Tim referred to. That is really just a great resource to have at hand whenever you're working on your website constantly. So.
All right, tip number 3 would be to use medium tail keywords. We just talked about how long tail keywords are dead. So instead, let's look at optimizing content around medium tail keywords. A medium tail keyword is a middle of the pack search term. They get good search volume, but they're still getting good search volume, and they're not insanely competitive either. So by optimizing your page around medium tail keywords, Google will automatically rank you for that term plus hundreds, if not thousands, of other similar keyword long tail terms that you never even thought of, working inside of that. So one example that I wanted to show here from one of our blog posts is optimize around the medium tail keyword parallax web design. And when you look here, this is an Ahrefs tool that we use to kind of check how things are ranking online. And you can see that this particular blog post ranks organically for over 360 search terms. And this is because Google is automatically ranking us for many long tail keywords associated with this article that we never even went after. It's just things before and things after parallax web design that we're automatically ranking for because this is a good piece of content and because we're optimized around that medium keyword set. And when you're looking for those medium tail keywords, you want to look for 3 to 4 word sets together, so they're not extremely hard to rank for, like SEO or SEO concept, but you want to kind of make it like a nice medium tail keyword. And the fourth tip that I can give you for future proofing your SEO is content. You ever heard the term that content is king? And then it's really because it is. Unique, valuable, long-form content is always the best. And as a general rule, make sure all of your blog posts and articles have at least 1,100 words plus. And I would recommend that even service pages should have 800 words plus. Longer content will not only help you rank better for your targeted keyword, but will also allow you to rank well for more of the long-term traffic, long tail traffic opportunities. And as an added bonus, content that's larger and more robust normally acquires more backlinks in SEO. Backlinks equal better rankings as well. There was a study done by Brian Dean at Backlinko, and he found that the average first page result contains about 1,400 words. And almost you can see through the grid here as your word count drops down, so do your rankings. So definitely try to make sure you stay there and publish good long content and provide all the information that searchers would be looking for when they're looking for whatever your search term would be. Now we're going to move on to the new Google Page Experience update. This is something that has gained a lot of momentum lately online, and that a lot of people have questions for and about, and that makes complete sense because Google very rarely ever really comes out and says, here comes an update, but when they do, a lot of people really sit up and take notice because it normally means that it's going to be something that's important. So to cover this, Google announced a new algorithm update that's coming out that will incorporate metrics designed to judge a user's experience when interacting with a web page. This algorithm update was creatively named by Google, the Google Page Experience Update, and this will become a live ranking factor sometime in early 2021. Google has said that they're going to give us a 6-month warning before it comes out as well, that kind of really get things tied up. But I would suggest people start looking at it as early as today. This update will use a combination of new and updated metrics to determine if users are having a negative experience on your page. And the accumulation of all those negative experiences would result in Google decreasing your page ranking in search results. We have written a blog post here, the Google page experience update post, and it's going to go a little bit more in depth than what I will today. We're going to touch on some of the top line stuff, but it's going to give you a little bit more information there as well. And this is something that we can link to, in the webinar afterwards as well. So the first one is the Core Web Vitals, and this is really the big part of what's new in this page experience update. A lot of the other stuff that's going to kind of fall in and be associated with it are going to be metrics that are already existing that are just going to be kind of shoveled in here. But the Core Web Vitals are really what we're going after. So the Core Web Vitals are what Google is using to specifically match real world aspects and user experience. Over time, they have already said that these core vitals will improve and grow, and there'll be more added, but this is what they're coming out with out of the gate, because this is what they can use right now to track and measure these metrics. The current set of web vitals include 3 aspects of user experience: loading, interactivity, and visual stability. So we'll jump into loading first. So first one would be for the loading aspect, they call it the largest contentful paint, which is a really fancy way of just saying the biggest image on your page. So however long it takes the biggest image on your page to load is what they're going to use as an accurate measurement to find out when everything on that page is actually loaded. It accomplishes this by reporting the render time of the most significant content visible, that image. Google is saying that it should occur within 2.5 seconds of the page first loading. If you're over 4 seconds, that's going to be poor. Most people are probably right now going to fall inside of that needs improvement area between that 2 to 4 second time spot. The next one is going to be the first input delay, and this is going to measure interactivity with the website, how responsive your website is to external use. So, for instance, a good way to kind of explain this would be when a user goes to your website and they click on a button or they click on a contextual link, how long it takes for the website and the browser to respond to that interaction and push the new piece of content forward or to show that it's been clicked on. They want this delay to be fewer than 100 milliseconds. Anything over 300 milliseconds is going to be considered poor. Under 100 is going to be considered good and passing in this measurement. From what I've seen just by running this tool against multiple sites online, is most websites are already usually really good with this, but it's something you definitely want to look into because it's going to be a ranking factor here. All right, and so the third new core web vital we're going to be looking at today is going to be commutative layout shift. And we have a little video that I'm going to play here for you because it's going to be a little bit easier to understand than if I try to tell you. But this would be, for example, when you go to a website and you're kind of scrolling through and you're getting ready to click on a button or a link or something. Typically, this is more on e-commerce kind of sites, and you're about to click on an order and the whole screen jumps or the whole screen moves, and you end up clicking on something you really didn't want to click on at all, but it's because the screen jumped after everything already loaded. And this is something that Google's really going to start cracking down on, I believe. And the little animation that we play here kind of helps to show what I'm talking about, because sometimes it can be a little difficult to explain that in real time. And this is what it looks like here. He's getting ready to click, and all of a sudden it jumps up, and he clicks on the wrong one, and the order's completed, and then you're in trouble. But that would be the third and final of the initial 3 core web vitals that are coming out for this particular update. Okay, and now we're going to jump into some of the older metrics that are already being used today by Google, and they're going to be combined in with the core web vitals that we just went over to kind of make that full, experience search. So the first would be mobile friendly. Mobile friendly is, a simple yes or no answer. Google provides a mobile friendly testing tool where you can go and test your site. If your site's mobile friendly, you're good to go. If not, then it's going to provide you some insights on what you need to do to go ahead and get your website to be considered mobile friendly. By this point in 2020, I would hope that everybody's website is mobile friendly, but it's going to be one of the things that are used inside of this update. Second is going to be safe browsing. Safe browsing is something that Google's been, championing for a while now. And what this does is try to protect users from malware, unwanted software, phishing scams, and different things like that. Most websites are good with this. Like, you would know if you're actively trying to scam somebody. But a good place that you can go and check just to make sure there are no security issues would be via your Google Search Console. There is a security issues report. You can click right there and it'll let you know if Google is going ahead and saying that you have any issues on your site as it is. The third piece is going to be the HTTPS. Make sure your websites are secure. This is something that Google has been also harping on for years, and we can definitely see in search results that sites that are secure definitely do rank better than sites that are not. Especially if those websites are equal in content and everything else. One secure is one not. The secure website will rank ahead of the other. There's been a bunch of different tests on this, and we're pretty confident in saying that for sure. The last one is going to be, and I'm going to butcher this guy, so I'm sorry, it's going to be a non-intrusive intersituational, which is just a really fancy way of saying, they don't want pop-up ads to come up on your website. So, Google started cracking down on this because it makes content a lot less accessible. You go to a website, you're getting ready to start reading something, and then boom, some ad pops up, or some image pops up, and all that kind of stuff. Most of the time, this is like an advertisement that's going to come up on the site. This is something that they're already looking at and penalizing people for. I think it's going to become a little bit more stronger of a metric once this new page experience update comes out. But just make sure that you don't have crazy pop-up ads on your website. If you do, there are certain parameters that you need to stay inside of, and if you need help with that, definitely reach out to somebody. Where we can kind of guide you and walk you through what best practices would be for that, so you don't get in trouble in the future.
And just be clear, Tim, that is different from like the chat box.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Yeah.
That's a different interaction where you're still engaging with the content in the website.
Exactly. And a lot of times this is, a lot of this stuff is really to crack down on spammy websites. Most of the websites people go to aren't going to have this. You may be on Facebook, and it's one of those things where it pops up and takes you to a website, and every page you have to keep clicking on to see the next picture, and these big ads pop up. That's the kind of stuff they're looking to penalize and eliminate moving forward. So the next section we're going to talk about here are some tactical and actionable SEO tips. I'm going to give you guys 3 actionable SEO tips to help increase organic search traffic. In this section, I'm going to give you some things to help. Now in advance, I'm not going to go ahead and talk about a bunch of high-level tactics that you've already heard like 1,000 times. Like optimize your title tags, share on social media, and use alt tags. All those things are good. They're not going to hurt, but the bottom line is everyone with a website's already doing this stuff. And in order for you to make your site and yourself stand out, you have to do things that other people aren't doing, or not a lot of other people are already doing. So this is something different. And these are some of the things that you can do to try to help your website rank better in organic search that not a lot of people are currently doing at the moment. The first one would be using short URLs. So my first tip, use short URLs, okay? We want to make sure these URLs are also keyword rich at the same time. So using only targeted keywords in the beginning of your URL whenever possible, and avoid using these long cluttered URLs that you see all the time. It's definitely going to help you rank better in search results. The URL is something that search engines look at as they're going back and trying to provide returns. We have an example here, yourwebsite.com/your keyword. Is definitely going to be better than yourwebsite.com 10 great reasons why your keyword could be awesome. It's just way too much noise there. Kind of look at the example that we give from our digital marketing services page. It simply says digital marketing services. You'll see this with all the blog posts that I put up. It's always going to be keyword rich. It's going to be targeted, and it's going to have typically those keywords in the front of the URL, and that's really the only thing the URL is going to involve. Now, just let me make a little point here too. I'm not recommending that you guys go back and um, start changing all your URLs to match this particular thing. That's honestly going to cause more harm than good. There's a lot of negative things that can happen if you're changing around URLs and all that stuff, but this would be something moving forward in the future that I would suggest doing. Don't go back and retrofit all your URLs, because you can wind up in a little nightmare doing it that way. My next tip would be, finding opportunity keywords. And an opportunity keyword is a keyword that has a clean or little clutter on the search results page. And I'm kind of going to go a little bit more in depth on this because I think it's important. It's definitely going to help with organic traffic. It's going to help with click-through rate, which is another ranking signal for Google, actually, click-through rate. But this is something that, if you don't take anything else away from this, drive this one home, because it's going to help. So on our next slide here, we're going to go ahead and, for example, let's look at the keyword ADA tools. We have ads at the top of the page. We have a facts box, a frequently asked questions box. We have video searches on this page. Down at the bottom of the page, which I didn't include, there's a full, search box for. There's a ton of noise. There's a bunch of clutter on this page. And if you're ranking on it, just take a look at the page. You have all this stuff above. You have all these things in between. There's so much noise here. The first organic ranking is placed in between ads and a result box. And what this is going to do is going to drive down the click-through rate on this particular keyword, because there's so much clutter on this page. It's harder for you to rank. You're going to rank for it, but you're not going to get as many click-throughs as you would on a typical page, because there's so much noise here. There's so many things that people can do. The questions can be answered directly from the drop-down box and the facts snippet, and it's going to drive down your click-through rate. And when we move on to the next slide, what we're going to see is an opportunity keyword and an example of that. Opportunity keywords, as I said, are keywords that have a higher click-through rate because they have cleaner search result pages. And in this example, I looked up, just SEO checklist. And as you can see, this page is super clean, and because it's super clean, you're going to get a much higher organic click-through rate. Because the users really don't have any other choices but to go for those basic organic search results. These keywords are actually becoming more and more hard to find, but when you can find them, the click-through rates for these are going to see this historic click-through rates you would normally think of with being ranked in the first few positions on a Google search results page. Next would be technical and actionable tip number 3, the hook technique. This one is also really cool, but just a heads up, this is a more advanced kind of backlinking strategy. Just want to kind of get it out there in the beginning, but here we go. Everyone knows that pages, with the most backlinks typically rank higher in search results. The tricky part is actually getting people to link back to you. So the hook technique really provides some advice on how to do that. Okay, so for this tip, the hook technique, the first thing we need to figure out is why people in your industry are linking to content there. So that's the hook. You need to find what that hook is. And for example, here, when I was looking into email marketing, I noticed there are posts that were packed with a lot of stats, a lot of templates, and these particular posts seem to be doing very well in search results, and also doing very well in having other websites link back to them, for this information. So when we go on to our second slide here, what it's going to do is, looking into this a little bit further, we saw that a majority of the websites that were linking to these pages were doing so because of those two things, because they were, either providing stats, or, they wanted to show some of the templates that were being talked about, on these posts. So, when you're writing blog posts, for instance, about email marketing, be sure to include your hook, a bunch of statistics and templates, because we already know that people in this niche are looking for content that provides this exact same information. This will make it so much easier for you to go out, reach out to other people, and acquire backlinks for this, because it already provides the information that people who are linking to content in that industry, in that niche, are already out there linking to. The hardest thing in SEO is getting backlinks. And if you're providing content and building content in a way that before you start writing it, that once it's live, there's people who are already going to link to it because they're already linking to this information in a bunch of other places, it makes it a lot easier for you to acquire backlinks that way. So this kind of brings us here close to the end, and kind of go over what's next from Google. To be honest, nobody really knows. They could come out tomorrow with an algorithm update that blows everything up. I don't think that's going to happen, but we don't know for sure. Now, one of the things that I would say we can pretty much guarantee is going to be a big thing for Google in the future is page experience. With the announcement of the new Google Page Experience update, I can safely say that UX is definitely going to contribute more and more in the future, especially as the core web vitals improve, more introduced, and they're looking at other ways to judge pages. A second part that I could say is definitely here to stay, and something you should be looking into is voice search optimization. Voice search is growing in popularity by the day, and that's because people are searching with their voice. They can do so 4 times faster than typing, especially on mobile devices. Now, you couple that with the emergence of all these different home AI assistant products like Google Home and Alexa and all these other things, and you can definitely see how voice search is going to be here to stay. Now, there's a little bit of a difference between your normal SEO and voice search SEO, and investing in creating and designing a strategy around voice search is going to be a smart move. One of the things that we already know for sure is that voice search really changes how people search for things in 2 important ways. One, the searches are definitely longer, because people are just talking. And because of that as well, searches are based more, they're more conversational in questioning, which means the traditional SEO tactics and keywords and the way that we build things out today aren't going to work as well, for these voice search metrics. So, coming up with and creating and designing a strategy around voice search is definitely something that I would think of and start to optimize for here within the next, I'd say, year, and you should be good to go.
All right, thank you, Ken. Appreciate that. And I will tell you, every time I'm typing something, my kids yell at me and tell me why are you not just using voice? They literally have different. Yeah, so the new generation will soon not type it. They'll just talk to their devices. It's already here. So, all right, so we do have a couple questions that have been submitted. So let's go ahead and dive into those.
Okay.
Question 1. When looking for opportunity keywords, is it okay if there are a few ads on the search results page?
Absolutely. You're definitely going to find a lot of these keywords that you're going after, especially in the service industry and things like that, are already going to have ads there, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Having ads shows that there's people looking for this content, and it also shows that it's important enough for advertisers to want to spend money to grab a click for that particular search term. So so ads on a search result page isn't bad. It can definitely be a good thing. It's just when you couple in with videos and images and different kinds of new rich content that they're adding onto the page, there's facts boxes and all this stuff, that's when stuff can start to be a little bit cluttered, and you might want to think about moving away from it unless it's going to be a major part of your search content strategy.
Yeah, thank you. And question 2,
Mm-hmm.
and this is one I know I have had in past lives and past marketing positions. What kind of tool would you use to check backlinks and see what or why other websites are linking back to an article or a blog post?
Sure. There's a few popular tools out there that you can use. they're really going to be paid tools. Some of them do offer a free version of it where you're allowed a certain number of searches per month. But in order to gain full access to the tool, you would have to pay. The one that we use here internally in Unleash Technologies is the Ahrefs tool, SEO tool, and that's going to allow you to add, a URL of a website or an individual page, be able to go and check those metrics from inside the page. Some of the slides that we had here today had some screenshots from inside the Ahrefs tool. Other than Ahrefs, Moz has a good tool. They're well known. SEMrush is also another tool that you can use. Those are probably the big three that most people know of and use that I'm aware of inside of the industry.
All right, thank you, Tim. So, all right, well, that does do it for our webinar, the new SEO mindset. We really appreciate you joining us. And once again, we'll be setting out information after this webinar to those of you who attended. You'll get a recording. I'll give you the links to both the articles that Tim referenced, and we'll also include our contact information. So if you have questions for us, please feel free to reach out and let us know. Thank you again, and good luck with your SEO.
Thanks, guys.